Melissa, and welcome back to Book Bar, and welcome to my January end of month wrap up. Normally I do a mid-month wrap up, but I just wasn't feeling it this month. So you're getting them all. It'll be kind of rapid fire, but I did read 22 books in the month of January. And yeah, if this is your first time watching a wrap up of mine, I go in order of how I completed the book. So I may have started a book, but not finished it till the end of the month, even if I started it early in the month. That's just the way I do it. So going on in, starting with the first book I completed, and possibly my favorite book, well, possibly going to be one of my favorite books of the year, and that is Unloved by Peyton Corinne. This book technically doesn't come out until February 4th, but it was out early at my Barnes & Noble, so I went and picked it up. And this follows Ro and Matt, or Freddie, and Ro, which this is funny because I read the original Unsteady, like before it got published. I read an arc of it, and so Ro had a whole different name, but that's fine. But this follows Ro and Freddie, and Ro is the best friend of Sadie, and she's also a tutor, and you know she's a tutor, and she's been tutoring someone who, if you read Unsteady, you know that she's been tutoring someone that she calls the student, but you don't know who the student is. You kind of have an idea of who it is, and soon you learn that it is Freddie, and you learn a lot about Freddie and hers dynamic. Freddie has ADHD, dyslexia, and dyscalculia, something like that. And so basically he struggles with school, and he's only in school, like he could be off in the NHL, but he's in school to basically like prove to his dad that he can do it. And he is very broken, very broken. And this book, it broke my heart. It tore me apart. I cried. I sobbed. I'm going to put it all back together, and I absolutely adored it. Definitely any favorite. 5 stars. Love this. Peyton Corinne can literally do no wrong. Her 2 books have both been absolute 5-star out of this world hits. So yes. Then I had my first DNF of the year, and that was One in a Millennial by Katie Kennedy. This was the first, I read this for a vlog, and the first part of it was so much like a love letter to millennial girlhood, and then it kind of went off the rails, and it hit a little close to home with talks about like mental health and stuff, and I just couldn't do it. So I had to DNF it. I was really enjoying it, and I might end up going back and like finishing it. I only had like a little bit left, but I might go back and finish it. But yeah, I just couldn't at the time. So it was good, but it wasn't like anything fantastic. So yes. Then I read Everyone on this Train is a Suspect by Benjamin Stevenson. This is the second book in the like Ernest Cunningham books. This one, Ernest is on a train for writers, and there is a murder on the train, and you learn stuff about it. I read this with my dad. We had a great time with it. We were talking about it. We had theories. Both of us were really wrong, but yeah, I had a great time with it. It's fun. Is this like the best mystery out there? Probably not, but it's fun. It's a good time. It's not anything that is going to make you think too very hard, but you're still gonna have a good time with it, and that's exactly what happened. So I'm really glad that we read this. So far, the 2 books that we've enjoyed the most have been the Benjamin Stevenson books. We've both really enjoyed both of them. So we've read a couple other ones that were flops and not great hits, but both of those, Everyone in My Family Has Killed Someone and Everyone on the Train is a Suspect, both been hits for us. Then I read Clean Point by Meg Jones. This is an age gap tennis romance. This follows Nico and Scotty. And Scotty is this like young up and coming, in the beginning, like in the prologue, she's this young up and coming tennis star. She just won Wimbledon, but it turns out her dad did some stuff to make her win that she was not privy to, and basically he was giving her like performance enhancing drugs in her smoothies that she had no idea about. And so she goes to the public and is like, I cheated. And so she's like given like a 2-year ban. She hasn't told anyone the real reason why she's not participating and stuff, and not competing, and not why she did what she did. And she ends up needing to make a comeback. And Nico, who is her father's rival, also kind of needs to make a comeback. And so their coach kind of pairs them together, and along the way, they fall in love. And yeah, it was fun. It was a good time. I gave it 4 stars. I had fun with it, but it wasn't like anything groundbreaking. But I am excited for the next book, because the next book follows her rival, and she was kind of a bee, so it'll be interesting to see what happens with her. Then I finished The Kingmaker by Kennedy Ryan. This is the first book in the All the King's Men. It's like 3 books. So the first, Kingmaker and the Rebel King, follow the same 2 people, and then there's a 3rd book, Queen Move, that follows like her best friend. But this is Lennox and Maxim. Lennox and Maxim. And Lennox is a native girl. She lives on native land in Arizona, and she is there protesting a pipeline when her and Maxim first meet. And his dad is there to build a pipeline on native land, and she is protesting it. They form a friendship. They get arrested together because of this, and she thinks that he is there to protest, not knowing that that's not why he's there. Then she gets picked up. They go their separate ways. She's only 17 at the time. They go their separate ways. Then there's like a 4-year time jump, and she is having a last like spring break before going away to college, or before graduating college, and like trying to figure out what she's gonna do next. And she's in Amsterdam with her 2 best friends, and she meets Maxim again, and they have like a whirlwind romance in Amsterdam. But then he has to go do some stuff for work, and she then ends up getting like a job offer and has to leave before he comes back. And so they go their separate ways for a while. He is actually going to do some work. He's trying to basically make up for all of the problems that his dad has caused being in big oil. And so he's going to go basically live in the Antarctic for 6 months. And something happens, and he ends up getting rescued by his father, and she learns who his father is, and now it's like 10, then there's another time jump of 10 years, and his brother wants to run for president of the United States. And Lennox is known as the Kingmaker. She is amazing at getting people the positions in office that they want, and so he hires her. And of course, Lennox and Maxim have a little thing together. Again, they rekindle their relationship. She's like, I can't trust you. You knew all along why I was protesting, but you lied. You led me to believe that you were better than you are. And he's like, I never lied. Like, I want to make amends for all of the stuff my dad has done. And so they end up getting back together. And then the end of this ends on like a massive cliffhanger, and they need to continue. So, but I loved this. I gave it 4 stars because it isn't like a full romance, but I am really excited to continue, and it could get bumped up to 5 once I finish the other book. Then I read Along Came a Lady by Christi Caldwell. This is actually a book that my grandma suggested I read. I had a good time with it. I read this for a vlog as well, and I enjoyed this. This follows... Why didn't I write anyone's name down? Edwina and Rafe. And Rafe is the son of a duke. And he knows he's the son of a duke, but the duke doesn't necessarily know that he has children. And he ends up having to raise his 3 younger siblings, 2 boys and a girl. And his father, the duke, ends up learning he has children when the youngest of the 3 boys wants to go into the army. So he goes to his dad and is like, hey, will you sponsor me as a so I can go into service? And so his dad is like, I didn't know I had children, but yeah. And his dad is now married to another lady, and they don't have children, and I don't think they're never going to have children. And so the dad really wants Rafe to come and take over, be his son, be his heir, be the next duke. And Rafe wants nothing to do with his father. And there has been many men that have come and tried to bring him back and bring him into the fold, and he's like, no. And so his father's desperate and sends Edwina, and of course him and Edwina are going to hit it off and have a good time. And yeah, I really enjoyed this. I'm glad I read it. I also read this for that same blog that I read a couple other books for. And same with the next book that I finished, which was Out of the Gate by Elsie Silver. This is the novella following the grandparents that own the land from the Golden Strand series. It's short, it's fun, it's cute. It is age gap. And that cover is stunning. Stunning. Not really allowed to say. It's short. It's a little novella. Then I read what is possibly the biggest surprise hit, and that is Mind Games by Nora Roberts. This was my first Nora Roberts book that I read. And like fully read. I've DNF'd one. And I read this. I listened to the audio. And maybe that's what I have to do, is listen to the audios. Because I was entranced by this. Like, this was so good. So this has a little bit of a magical realism twist, but it's also a romance. A very small town single dad romance, which I am a sucker for. So this follows Thea and Ty. And Thea is, when she is like 7, she has a dream, and she dreams about her parents getting murdered. And she wakes up, and her grandma had the same dream. It turns out that the dream was kind of like a premonition, like she could see things. And it turns out her parents were murdered. And she's actually able to kind of communicate via dreams with the man that murdered her family. And he basically spends the rest of her, like the next, I want to say it's like 15 years, basically like taunting her. And she's just trying to live life. But she has this guy who can like see her and can make her see things and make her have horrible, horrible thoughts. And she ends up falling in love with the boy next door, basically, and who actually happens to be her like childhood crush because he's famous. And he just wants to live out the rest of his days with his son in this small town. And yeah, it was just like, I loved it. I loved this book so much. I don't want to say too much because I don't want to give anything away, but it was so good. And it wasn't very like suspenseful because there wasn't like, the guy doesn't get out of jail and like come after her or anything, but it was very good, twisty, and different because it is like a magical realism twist to it. And I really did enjoy it. Then I read The Finest Print by Erin Langston. And this is a historical romance that follows Belle and Ethan. Belle and Ethan. And Belle is the oldest daughter of the brother from Forever Your Rogue. Cora's brother. Gavin, I think his name is. Gavin. And Amelia, I believe is his wife. They had a novella. And Belle is the oldest daughter, and she wants to basically be a writer. And the only way she's been able to be one so far is by teaming up with Ethan, who has moved from America, London, to be because he inherited this print shop. Well, the print shop is actually failing, and he needs to make money and make money quick. So he ends up hiring Belle to help him write these like penny bloods is what they call them. So they were like short little horror novels, like weekly horror serials, basically. And every week there was like a little bit. And so they kind of strike up a friendship and a working relationship. And of course, the working relationship is going to lead to a little bit more. Yeah, I loved it. It was 5 stars. Definitely a new favorite. Then I reread Fourth Wing, but I'm going to hold off on talking about this one because there's more to come. So I did reread Fourth Wing, but I'm going to hold off on that one. I'm going to talk about my next book, which was All the Missing Pieces by Catherine Cowles. This is her new release standalone. It is still small town, still suspense, but this follows Ridley and Colt. And Ridley is in the prologue, her twin sister gets kidnapped. And now she's a true crime podcaster trying to solve these unsolved cases, unsolved kidnappings, unsolved murders, trying to figure out and like help these families because her family is not helped because they don't know anything about what happened to her sister. And then she ends up going to this small town, I believe it's in like Northern California, and she goes there to investigate this crime that had happened, I want to say it's like 15 years prior, and to a like young girl. She was kidnapped. She ended up escaping, And Ridley actually believes that the kidnapper that kidnapped, I can't remember her name, believes that he was the man who took her sister. And she wants to kind of like piece together all of the information and figure out what happened. And her brother, the girl who was kidnapped's brother, Colt, has a lot of feelings about this because he was the one who was supposed to pick his sister up and was late. And he doesn't really like that this girl is sniffing around trying to figure things out. But he might be intrigued by her and want to know more. So they might work together to figure out what happened. It was great. It was fantastic. I did not see who the murderer, kidnapper dude was going to be. It was shocking. But yeah, I enjoyed this. Loved it. 5 stars. Everyone that said it was a favorite of last year was correct. Then I read Endgame by Indy Valentine, or formerly That Tall Book Girl Cheyenne. This was her first novel. I had an arc of this. I enjoyed it. I gave it 3.5 stars. My biggest complaint was the baseball aspect was inaccurate. And I am a stickler for, if you're going to write a sports romance, you better write it right. And I don't like, and it is a debut. Like, you can tell it's a debut, but I did really enjoy it. I loved Dakota and Calloway. I loved how he like fell first and fell hard, and he was kind of grumpy, or she was kind of grumpy, and he was the sunshine. I love that. I love that a lot. But I did take issue with the baseball aspect, and you could tell it was a debut. But I had a great time with it. I'm glad I read it, and I will definitely continue. She can only go up from here. But like with the, what is it, Fair Catch by Candy Steiner, I gave the book 3 stars because the football was wrong. And that pisses me off. But then Blindside ended up being a favorite book and was 5 stars. So it's not saying that like if the baseball is not part of it really, and like he's just a baseball player and like there's like a little bit of baseball, it's okay. But when you're including so much of it and it's wrong, I'm going to be upset about it. So yeah. Soapbox done. It was good. I really enjoyed it. You should definitely pick it up. Then I read When You Had Me Adapting by Jess Christine. This was another arc that I had, and this was amazing. Fantastic, 5 stars. I cried. I loved it. Lacey and Jace were childhood best friends who became more when he was 18, she was 17. And he's about to go off, and like basically he was gonna have a gap year. But he had gotten this prestigious like summer program. He was gonna go do this program and like do it for like a year and then come back, and they were gonna go to college together. Well, one day Lacey just breaks up with him, and we don't know why. And now they hate each other. Well, she hates him. But Lacey's best friend Poppy is now dating one of Jace's best friends, Logan. And so they're like forced back together and forced to confront the issues that they had in the past. And this book was so good. I loved it. Definitely an author that if you have not picked up, you should read. Both When You Left Me Speechless and When You Had Me Adapting. Fantastic books. Loved them both. Now back to Fourth Wing, because I did then reread Iron Flame, and of course I read Onyx Storm. So I read all 3. But I can't really talk about Onyx Storm or Iron Flame because they are sequels of Fourth Wing. So we're just going to talk about Fourth Wing, which follows, I'm sure you know, follows Violet Sorrengail, who believes that she is going to enter the scribe quadrant at Sky War College. She believes that she's going to do that. She's told that from her when she early on. But then her father ends up dying, and her mom's like, no daughter of mine is going to enter the scribes. You're going to be a writer. And so she ends up entering the writer's quadrant and has to learn to be a dragon rider, and also has to face off with the son of the traitor to the kingdom who her mother had killed because he was a traitor. And her and Xaden may enter into a little bit of an enemies to lovers relationship, and Violet might be a lot more powerful than people believe. And that is only amplified in Onyx Storm. But I love the series. Say what you want. Say the criticisms that you have about Iron Flame and Onyx Storm. I disagree. I mean, I can see how there are still so many questions and plot threads that you're like, we're 3 books in. Some of this should be getting answered, and none of it is. So I do see the criticisms to that. But when I am in these books, I am in them. I read each of these in like one day. Especially the first time around, I read each of them in like one sitting. I just love this series with my whole heart, and it is 5 stars, even though like Onyx Storm was 5 stars, even though like looking back, it's probably going to end up being like in terms of hopefully the way the series is, it's 5 books. It's supposed to be 5 books. So in a 3-arc structure, this one should be the worst, realistically. Like it should be amazing, a little bit not as great, a downturn, and then it should start going up, right? In the 3-arc structure, you would believe that. So hopefully that is the case, but I love them. I love them all. And I am just happy that we had a new one. Then, yeah, I also went on a book retreat for those. It was a great time. Then I read Drive Me Wild by Melanie Harlow. This was fine. I gave it 3 stars. I really don't even have much to say about it. It was a small town romance where the heroine Blair basically crashes her car, and Griffin saves her, and he's a mechanic and puts her car back together, and they fall in love along the way. It was fine. It took me like a week and a half to read, not even 250 pages, 275 pages. So it was fine. I love this cover. It's gorgeous, but I probably will not be keeping it. So yeah, I don't know how much to say. It was just fine. Same with the next book that I finished, which was Holding the Reins by Paisley Hope. This was Paisley Hope's first book, and I hopefully will enjoy more. I did see the like positives of her writing. I just was kind of bored throughout the whole book. This follows Nash and Cece, and Nash is a former hockey player and is Cece's brother's best friend, and Cece moves back to her hometown after living in Seattle for a couple years, being engaged and in a horrible relationship. And she ends up working for Nash at the hockey rink or the public skating rink that he owns. And they, of course, kiss, and things lead to more, and they end up in a relationship together, hiding it from her brothers, the whole thing. So it was fine. I enjoyed it. I gave it 3 stars. Like nothing special, nothing great, but I had a good time. I will continue and read more of Paisley Hope's writing because I did see the potential. Then I read Ruled Out by Ruth Stilling. This is the 4th and final book in the Seattle Scorpions series. This follows Jesse and Mia, and this book, every book in this series just got better. I read Born Hearts, and then I read Frozen Over, and then I read Dead Rinker, and then Ruled Out. And I didn't think anything would top JJ and Kate in Dead Rinker. They were it was one of my favorite books of last year. I loved them. But Jesse and Mia broke me in more ways than one. I read this book so fast. All I wanted to do was read it. I was sobbing reading it. I loved it so much. And it's a second chance romance but it's forbidden. And the things that Jesse and Mia went through alone and together just was utterly heartbreaking. And I loved it. I loved it so much. I gave 5 stars. Obviously, if you can't tell. Then I read City of Gods and Monsters by Kayla Edwards. This was a reread. I am part of Mel from Eleanor Reads and Cassidy from Carvers of Cassidy's Patreon, and they were reading it this month for their like book club that they have. And so I was like, you know what? I read this years ago. I read it, and there was a vlog where I read it. And I don't remember like anything about it. I gave it 3 stars, and I was like going to continue, but then book 2 ended up not going on KU, and so I just like never continued, and I couldn't tell you anything. And I've only heard good things about the series. Like people like love this series, and so I was like, you know what? Maybe I need to reread it and like see. My feelings about it didn't change. I still give 3 stars. Like I rewatched the vlog where I read it, and I was like, no, yeah, pretty accurate how I feel about it. But now that I do remember how it ends, and I do remember everything that goes on between Darian and Lauren, I am excited to continue. They are on KU now. And I think what I'm going to do, because the 4th book comes out in May, so I think I'm going to read 1 a month. so that way in May. So I read, or is it the 5th book comes out in May? I don't know, but I read one in January. I gotta look. Read one in February, one in March, one in April, or maybe I'll skip February, read one in March and one in April, so that I'm ready for May and can continue. Because I am intrigued by what the world is, but I'm not obsessed yet. All right, 4 more. Then I read Digging Up Love by Chandra Blumberg. And I don't know how to feel about this one. I wanted to love this. It is Black Love. It is a black baking heroine who also loves powerlifting and a nerdy dinosaur paleontologist hero. And they fall in love. And I just felt like it was the complications in their relationship were just so over the top and stupid that I really didn't like it. I gave it 3 stars. I had a good time with it, and I would be interested in continuing, but I don't know. I never really felt like their romance was all that romantic. And this is a closed-door romance. So I need to feel that romantic chemistry, and I didn't feel any between the two of them, but without having the spice factor of it. And I don't need spice in my books. I'm not like, oh, all the books have to be super spicy. I do enjoy spice in my books, but I don't need it as long as the romantic chemistry is on point and solid and amazing. And this one just didn't have any, and I don't know. It was complicated. My feelings about it are very complicated. So yeah, I ended up giving that one 3 stars. But I would be excited I would try the next book in the series to see how that one goes. Because this follows her sister. Who, again, just the complications between the sisters was dumb. Like, a little over the top. Then I read Steal My Heart by Laura Pavlov. This is the new book in her Rosewood River series, her new series. I gave this one 4 stars. It was good. But it's kind of one of those books that, like, I don't think I will remember at the end of the year. This follows Easton and Henley. And Henley, you kind of knew going into this book that this was going into this, that this was going to be the next series from Beating Heart. Because his sister is Emerson, who is the doctor that Nash falls in love with. And so you knew that his family was going to be this next series. So Easton is Emerson's twin, and you knew he was going to be having to basically take his boss's daughter under his wing. He's a lawyer, and he was going to have to take her under his wing as like his new protege, basically. And they get off on the wrong foot, and of course, Easton's a broken boy, as they all are. He has a lot of trauma in his past, especially in regards to relationships, and that played a big factor in this book, and it was just, I don't know. Like, it was good. I enjoyed it. I love Laura Pavlov's writing. I love her small towns. And I'm excited to continue. I cannot wait for the single dad. Because y'all know I love a good single dad. I just felt like he wasn't the best starting point. But maybe he was, because maybe every book now will just be better. Because I think Easton was a little, like, I didn't love his story. I don't know. So I gave 4 stars. Because I did love the romance, of course. And Laura Pavlov's just a good writer, but I can't see this being a favorite when it comes like the end of the year. And so I am kind of trying to be more discerning on like my absolute favorites, and this just wasn't it. So 4 stars for this. Then I read The Moon and His Tides by Giana Darling. This is Sebastian Lombardi's story, and Sebastian Lombardi is one of the Lombardi siblings. All 3 of his sisters have had their own trilogies or duologies, and Sebastian, you kind of know from, I haven't read all of Giselle's, and I haven't read Cosima's, but I read the first one in Giselle's, and I read Dante and Elena, and I read Elena's duology, and so you kind of know Sebastian has some secrets and some trauma revolving relationships, and you learn about that in this one. So this one is technically set before all of the other books have happened. So before the Evolution of Sin, before the Enslaved, and before the Anti-Heroes in Love. This one takes place first. And then the second book will be 10-year time jump, which will be after all of those have happened. So this follows Sebastian, obviously, and he ends up being a driver for this woman, Savannah. And Savannah is married to his, basically, idol. It's Sebastian's idol, Adam. And Savannah and Sebastian strike up a friendship and a little rapport, and he might have her do some stuff to herself. And then Adam's like, I'm intrigued. And so him and Savannah agree to bring Sebastian into their marriage, and it's kind of the three of them are in a throuple. But it's very much Sebastian is in love with them, and they kind of are using him, is the way that I felt about it. I'm excited to continue. I did read the first chapter of The Sun and Her Burn because Giana sent it in her newsletter, and I'm excited for it. But yeah, I gave this one 4 stars, 3.5 stars really. But it could go up, it could go down, who knows. I am excited to see where the next installment takes place. I felt like Sebastian was kind of used, so I didn't love that. Then the last book I finished was a reread of Flawless by Elsie Silver. Mel from Millennial Reads, as I mentioned earlier, her Patreon, she read Flawless, I think it was this month, or maybe it was last month, but she read Flawless and absolutely was obsessed with it. Oh, it was in January, because she read it for like Booktuber's favorites, I think, and absolutely fell in love with it. And so she got like a bunch of she like added like a whole thing on her Discord and had a bunch of people reading it, and I was like, I want to reread now. So I'm going to be rereading this whole series probably. I love it. I'm obsessed, and I'm excited to read it. But this follows Rhett and Summer, not Seth and Summer. I don't think I see Rhett and Summer. And Rhett is a bull rider who gets in some hot water for saying some negative things about one of his sponsors and also then punching a guy. And Summer is his agent's daughter and basically ends up having to be his babysitter, and things are gonna happen. There's a cowboy hat rule. It's amazing. I love this. If you haven't already read it, go read it. I think I've talked about this about 550 times on my channel. But I love the Chestnut Spring series with my whole heart. And yeah. So yeah, that is the 22 books that I read this month. This was a long video. If you made it to the end of the video, leave me a bow emoji. And don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, all the fun stuff. It really helps me out. I'll talk to you all in the next one.